This time I'll be reviewing two books, and both are graphic novels, but they are both very widely different from each other. The first book being The Ring of Nibelung and this is adapted by P. Craig Russell, and the original play is by Richard Wagner. And the second book is Lighter Than My Shadow by Katie Green. So let's start with The Ring of Nibelung. So if you have not heard of this book, this is a very interesting book in the sense that it marries and very successfully marries Tolkien with Norse mythology, with modern adaptations of opera. And I mean, it's a very different kind of book. And if you check out the Goodreads blurb for this, you'll notice that Goodreads reviews for this. So you'll notice a lot of people saying that this is one of the last books which had lettering as a very important part of the book. And I did not really understand what this meant until I actually went through the book. So I'll try to highlight this as best as I can. So this is actually an opera. It's a play. It's an opera, as you know. And this was adapted for comics by P. Craig Russell. So this is based, as it says, is based on the music dramas of Richard Wagner, and it's about this ring. This is the Ring of Nibelung, to be more specific. So now here, this is what I meant by it's one of the last books which paid a lot of attention to lettering. So this evokes the thought of how this sentence would be by theft would be said. And the artwork is brilliant. I mean, it's very colorful yet very subtle, and the penciling comes through very nicely at, like, look at this part, this section, and then there's this section. So as you can see, this evokes a kind of how would I say, horror, kind of horror that's coming out. And yet the book is very I won't say it's on your face, but it's rather very apparent. The artwork comes at you. It's a very vibrant kind of artwork, but with solid backgrounds, as you can see here. So it's a marriage of different kinds of art styles, and I personally love the book. So it has Odin, it has the Valkyries, yet it's not exactly the Norse mythology, and then it has a ring which is obviously a kind of reference to Tolkien, and then there's someone who seemed to me like Golem, and then there's romance, and then there's valiance, and a lot of things. I mean, it has an old world charm. It has a bright color and color scheme, and it has a new world charm. It's a beautiful book altogether, and definitely a collectible. If you sorry about that. So the battery ran out. So yeah, as I was saying, so this is a beautiful book in that aspect, and if you are into collecting, I would definitely suggest you to get this book, because this is an awesome book for your book collection. And yeah, so that's about it. And at the very end, there are some extra parts where P. Craig Russell says what it means to be an adaptation, what is an adaptation, and then he gives an example, a very good example of Canio's speech in Italian, and then the translation by Mark Andreicco. So I haven't seen the original opera, so I cannot comment on how good an adaptation this might be, but judging by just the book, I would say it's an excellent book. And he gives examples of what it means, and then examples of from this. So yeah, he shows what it means from for musical note. So this is the musical note, and he says this is what it came about from the musical note. So this is a part where it shows how the creative process of the whole thing came about, and it's a beautiful read in that aspect as well. You get a lot of inspirations on how and where the author changed what and how it worked out. So this is, as it says, Wotan's Judgment from Brunhilde, from page 21 of Valkyrie Part 3. This is the original German-English version of the libretto, from which P. Craig Russell worked, broken up into panels, and then there are handwritten text translation of passages as well. Then there's a little bit of penciling followed by the original penciling followed by the colored part, finished panels, and then sketch artwork, rough artwork, and the inked part. So it's a fairly thick part on that aspect, so it's a beautiful ink part here, as you can see, fairly thick part at the end. And then book 1, it shows book 1, and then this book 2, the original books, book 3, it's also book 3, Siegfried, book 4, Götterdämmerung. My pronunciation might not be on spot, but I think that's what it says, book 4. And then P. Craig Russell and a short biography of his. Overall a great book, so I'll try to get the blurb in. You can pause here and read the blurb if you want. Hardcover, beautiful adaptation, and great copy by Dark Horse. So that was The Ring of Nibelung. We get on to Lighter Than My Shadow. Now this is a very thick book, and it's not a hardcover, but it's a very interesting read. So there's a blurb here. It's about a young girl, and it's an autobiography of sorts, graphic memoir to be more specific, that's what it says. You can read here. So Katie was a PK eater and should sit at the table in silent protest. And then Lighter Than My Shadow is a hand-drawn story of struggle and recovery, a trip back into the heart of taboo illness, anorexia to be more specific. And so very beautiful artwork, reminds me somewhat of Hugo and Cardi, if you have read those books. But really beautiful artwork and very different kind of artwork. Lovely book, very thick book. And so here you can see the artist's rendition of thoughts. Lovely interpretation, and it's mostly in monochrome. There are a few pages in between which show color, but that's also like monochromatic color. So this is a shade of reddish, I'd say brick red, maybe, not very good with the colors. And then there's a purple part. This is slightly purplish. So as you can see, the artwork, it's fairly different from almost anything I've read before. It comes close to few books I've read, but the artwork is different. And then the recovery part and so on. So this is a beautiful panel, as you can see here. And then there are pages which are left blank, intentionally blank, to give you an idea of how helpless the whole thing was. Overall an awesome book, and I would definitely suggest for you to read this in some form at least. Totally worth getting and reading. And that's her, Katie Green. and that's about it. Lighter than my shadow. The back. So as always, if you have any questions, anything to offer, feel free to write a comment, and happy reading.